Yo, 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 what is up, guys? It's Cone back here again tonight with another episode of After the Buzzer. We have our first conference final participant. The Phoenix Suns have just swept the Denver Nuggets to advance to the Western Conference Finals for the first time since the last time they were in the playoffs, actually. It seems like the Suns are just trying to go on a Western Conference final streak or something, but 10 years ago, the last time they made the playoffs was the last time, or maybe I think it was 11 years ago, but either way, last time they made the playoffs was the last time they made the Western Conference Finals, and they're back. Led by Chris Paul and Devin Booker, the duo have both had incredible games tonight, with Chris Paul having his best scoring performance in the playoffs since 2018, so it's 2 years ago. The year which coincidentally after it was kind of his last season where people thought he wasn't washed. In 2019, everyone started to write him off, call him washed, called his contract untradeable. And here he is leading his team, the best player in this game, leading his team to the Western Conference Finals over a Nuggets team that was really chippy and they fought really hard in this game, despite the fact that their MVP, the MVP of the entire league, Nikola Jokic, was ejected in quarter three of this game. I don't know why I said quarter three instead of third quarter. The third quarter of this game. It was a really chippy game, like I said, especially in that third quarter. Nikola Jokic was mad he didn't get a foul call, and so he tried to smack the ball out of Cameron Payne's hands, go for like a hard strip/foul to see maybe if he could shift the momentum a little bit, get his team fired up, and he ended up clipping Cameron Payne in the face in what they called a flagrant 2 and ejected him. A lot of people were mad about that. I think it was a decent call to call it a flagrant 2. Really, the only problem is that you don't want to see the MVP of the entire league ejected in his final game of the season, in his team's final playoff game of the season. You don't want to see that. You never want to see that. And so that sucks. But at the same time, I see why they called it a flagrant 2. If you go watch the video, he winds up, throws his arm down and kind of smacks Cameron Payne. He really hits him in the nose as he goes for the ball, and that's dangerous. He could have broken his nose theoretically with how much force was on that windup and that swing down. So I get it. It sucks that he was ejected. Him and Devin Booker got in each other's faces, but ultimately Nikola Jokic, after the game, said that he didn't mean to hit Cameron Payne in the face, and after they said he was ejected, he walked onto the court for one last time to apologize to Cameron Payne and say, "Are you okay?" before heading back to the locker room. I don't think there was any malicious intent. I think he was just frustrated and tried to go for a hard foul/strip, and he ended up hitting him in the face. So despite that, the Nuggets really fought hard at the end of this game. Michael Porter Jr. had 20 in what was a good performance from him. Will Barton, in just his second game back since whenever the hell he got hurt, I don't even remember, it was that long ago. He had 25 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. It was a good game from him. Monte Morris, who got put in the starting lineup for the first time in a while, had 19 points. It was just an all-around good game from the Nuggets, but this Suns team is just different. They're so good. And without their MVP to close out this game, they really just didn't have a shot. As soon as Jokic got ejected, this game was over. And the Nuggets, to their credit, did make it close, but a flurry of Chris Paul mid-range jumpers it's just like one of the most impossible moves in the entire NBA to stop. Chris Paul's been playing for about 15 plus years, and despite him going to that move for pretty much his entire career, no one's ever figured out how to stop it. And at this point in his career, if you're not stopping it when he's 36 years old, I don't think anyone's going to be able to stop it until he retires. So this all around is just a massive success for the Suns as a franchise. I'm not going to talk too much about the Denver Nuggets because I think I do want to drop a video, or I know I'm going to drop a video talking about their future, what I see in the future for the Denver Nuggets going into next season. I don't think the Nuggets are screwed at all. I think this Nuggets team is positioned to be one of, if not the best team in the Western Conference in the coming few seasons. They've got a combination of young talent, established talent, a solid coach in Michael Malone, and I think they have the ability to make some moves. I think they're well constructed. They've just got to stay healthy. And that was mainly the issue in this series. There were some problems they had, not great guard defense. Even after Will Barton came back, who is a good guard defender, they needed better defense from their team as a whole, and that is something they do need to work on. But ultimately, I think when they are healthy, this Nuggets team next season can be one of the favorites to come out of the Western Conference Finals when Jamal Murray makes his return. It won't be probably towards the end of the season, but hopefully when he's able to make that return, he looks like the player we've seen in the past, and the Nuggets return to the contending team that, if they had Jamal Murray, I might have picked them to come out of the West this season. So, heading over to the Suns side of things. This was just, like I said, a success all around for the Suns, for this franchise. Monty Williams, who, in my opinion, should have won Coach of the Year, an incredible performance by him in both the last series and this series. Because while the Nuggets aren't on the Suns' level with the current level of health they have, they're still a good team. They still have the MVP of the league, someone that no one has really been able to stop all season. And the Suns found a way to somewhat neutralize him while completely neutralizing the rest of the players on this team. They were battered, the Nuggets, but they're still a tough team. And when you have the MVP, anything is possible. So credit to the Suns for not letting up, not saying, oh, these guys are kind of hurt, let's take them lightly or whatever, we're going to beat them. No, the Suns came into this series looking for blood, and they came looking to sweep them. They want to rest. The Clippers and the Jazz are going to be locked in a really tough series. Whichever team comes out of there, whether it's the Jazz in 5, the Clippers in 6, the Jazz in 6, or one of those two teams in 7 games, whatever the result is, it's going to be a war for that team, whoever comes out of there, to win that series. And so the Suns now are getting an opportunity to chill, rest, and just relax and look forward to that series. They're not looking forward past anyone now. They are set in the Western Conference Finals. All they've got to do is chill and let those two teams beat the hell out of each other. And whichever team comes out of there, like I said, they're going to have gone through hell to get here. If you're talking about the Jazz having to fight past a Clippers team that's really tough after having to deal with a lot of close games from the Memphis Grizzlies, a really physical team, it's tough to go past those two teams and then face this Suns team. As for the Clippers, they would have had to fight through 7 against Dallas and at least 6 games against the Utah Jazz, since they're already down, or they were down 2-0. Winning game 3, now down 2-1. The quickest they could win the series is in 6 games, and I honestly see it going 7. I think that's going to be a 7-game series. So having to fight through 7 games against the Utah Jazz, who once again are a physical team, it takes a lot out of you. And so the Suns getting their business done here is really important to them going forward. I think the Suns team, I've said this in the past, if I have to pick right now who's coming out of the Western Conference, it's the Phoenix Suns. The way that they've been just handling business, I don't see anyone on those teams that can stop Chris Paul and Devin Booker right now. You could put Paul George and Kawhi Leonard on those two guys, but then you have problems with Mikal Bridges on the perimeter. Jay Crowder's been killing it. DeAndre Ayton, what is their answer to him? Because Zubac, when he has played more than 18 minutes, the Clippers haven't won a single game in these playoffs. So what do you do with him? You can't put Batum out there. DeAndre Ayton's going to make you pay. You're going to get killed on the boards. How do you handle this Phoenix Suns team? And in terms of the Jazz, if you go up against this Phoenix Sun team, who guards Devin Booker and Chris Paul? They don't have the wing defenders or guard defenders quite that the Los Angeles Clippers have. Gobert can help out with Ayton, but they're still the perimeter guys. I think one of those two teams, the Clippers or the Jazz, could beat the Suns, but right now I'm picking the Suns. I think Chris Paul, this is his year. At least his year to make it to the finals. We'll see who he faces in the finals. It could be either the Bucks or the Nets, who are now in a tied series. I'll get to that in a second. But whether they face the Bucks, Nets, Hawks, or Sixers, this Suns team is going to be really hard to stop, assuming they do make it out of the West like I'm claiming. And I can't overstate how happy I am, not just for the Suns organization as a whole, taking a risk, trading for Chris Paul, and saying we are going to contend now, making that decision. But I'm happy for Chris Paul. I'm so happy for the guy. He's one of my favorite players in the league. He became one of my favorite players years ago, but he more so became one over the course of the past season and a half, playing with the Oklahoma City Thunder, the fire that he played with, the way that he came into our organization, could have quit, could have demanded a trade, and instead said, I want to take this team to as far as we can go. He took us to a Game 7 of the of the first round of the Western Conference playoffs. We just barely lost there at the end, but against a Rockets team that before the season, nobody would have thought the Thunder had a chance at beating. It was amazing. And I can't thank him enough for that season. Probably my favorite season ever as a Thunder fan, just because it was my first season on Twitter, first season interacting with y'all, and the way that we exceeded everyone's expectations. It was just so much fun. And to see Chris Paul now going out there, continuing to hoop, and continuously proving people wrong. That's what he's been doing these past 2 seasons. When the Thunder traded for him, if you do not remember, people thought it was dumb because people said Chris Paul's contract is untradeable. They said he's old, he's washed, he can't stay healthy, and his productive years are behind him. What does he do? Finished top 5 in MVP voting last season, and this season now being one of the 2 lead options on a Phoenix Suns team, heading to his second Western Conference Finals in his career, and hopefully his first NBA Finals. I love this Suns team. It's no secret that I'm rooting for the Suns team to make it out of the West and win the finals. I want to see Chris Paul win a ring. So shout out Phoenix Suns fans. The Nuggets, y'all will be back if you're a Nuggets fan watching this video. I don't think you can be too mad with how your team tried to perform. They fought right until the end, even if it didn't work out and they ended up getting swept. They tried to make it competitive, and with how battered this team was, I think that's really all you can ask for. The Nuggets will be back. Now, as we move into Bucks Nets, this is a different story because Here we have, this kind of is reminiscent to me of the Lakers-Suns series in the first round, where the Lakers winning game 3 kind of looked like they were getting in the driver's seat a little bit, similar to the way that the Brooklyn Nets kind of looked like they were in the driver's seat for the first 2 games, really just beating up on the Bucks. And then in game 3, the Bucks, credit to them, took a game, winning it. But now the Nets injuries are just kind of starting to pile up. Kyrie Irving, if you did not know, got hurt. He hurt his ankle. He sprained it, I believe is what they said, I think it was the second quarter of this game. For some reason, I'm blanking on that. Pretty sure it was the second quarter of this game, landing on, it looked like Giannis's foot off the first replay, but looking at it later, he didn't even land on Giannis's foot. There were people saying that Giannis did it on purpose, hurting Kyrie Irving, that he jumped under Kyrie, hurting him on purpose, spraining his ankle on purpose. He didn't even look at the guy. If you're one of the people that thinks that Giannis did it on purpose, you're just looking for conflict. He didn't do it on purpose, not at all. And it's just unfortunate. That's what happens down there sometimes when you're in the paint. I personally have had a lot of ankle issues. I wear an ankle brace on my left ankle every single time I play basketball because I have sprained that ankle multiple times. I know how much that hurts. And so as soon as I saw Kyrie go down, I was like, damn, man, that hurts like hell. And so I didn't really expect him to come back into this game. I was holding on to hope that he would, to keep this close, to keep it, keep him in the game. But unfortunately, he was unable to play for the rest of the game, and we don't know his status going forward. If him and James Harden are out, it's all down to KD. And as great as Kevin Durant is, it's really hard in this league, especially against a team like the Milwaukee Bucks, to win more than like a game by yourself. I'm not saying he's by himself because he does have 4 teammates, but in terms of star power, right now the Bucks way outweigh what the Nets have. One of James Harden or Kyrie has to play next game, or I think it's going to be a 3-2 lead for the Bucks. And if Kyrie and James Harden aren't back in this series, I'm going to pick Bucks in 6. It sucks. The Nets are a team that really the only thing that seemed like was going to stop them was injuries. And here they are. They're piling up. They've had some throughout the season, but it looked like they had rested enough. It looked like James Harden took some time off to end the season. He did have a hamstring injury, but through that first round against the Celtics, he looked like he was okay. And then the first couple minutes of this series, he hurt it. Kevin Durant missed a lot of time with a leg issue. He seemed healthy so far, which is great to see. Hopefully it stays that way. And then Kyrie, I don't believe he missed much injury time. I think he missed a little bit here and there for just kind of maintenance reasons. But ultimately, Kyrie goes down in game 4 of this series. Once again, I really hope he's able to play because I want to see these two teams go at it full strength. And the unfortunate factor, or the unfortunate situation that exists in the playoffs, is that it's very rare you see two teams go at each other full strength. Injuries happen a lot, and people are going to say stuff like, oh, Mickey Mouse series win for the Milwaukee Bucks or whatever. And yeah, the Nets are at a disadvantage without James Harden and Kyrie Irving, absolutely. But you still have got to lock in. And despite the fact that they were both hurt, through the beginning of the third quarter in this game, the Nets were in it. And even after Kyrie first went down, the Nets were fighting. All throughout this game, the Nets continued to try and fight. They even won the fourth quarter. They outscored the Bucks 27-26. The problem was the Bucks defense was ridiculous in this game. That was really the story I want to talk about. The Bucks looked so locked in on the defensive end of the ball, especially on Kevin Durant. Even before Kyrie went down, PJ Tucker had me, as not a Bucks fan, ready to run through a wall for him with the way that he was playing defense on Kevin Durant. Was he getting away with a couple ticky-tacky fouls? Maybe. Was he getting really physical? Absolutely. Was he fouling him sometimes? Yes. But was he ultimately stopping Kevin Durant from scoring? He was. Kevin Durant, when guarded by PJ Tucker, I think he was like 3 of 11 or something like that. That's probably not the exact numbers, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And he was just all up in his face. He even had a block that was kind of clean. His body just kind of bumped into his. It was a foul. Even though PJ Tucker is one of those guys that looks like he's never been called for a foul correctly in his entire life when they do call him for one. But PJ Tucker just played great defense. He hit multiple corner threes, as is his MO, scoring 13, 7, and 1. He is a guy you want on your team. When they traded for him, I said, the reason this is so big is because when you face a team like that, or when you face these top Eastern Conference teams that have these great wings, like if you face the Brooklyn Nets, for example, as they are doing now, Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Joe Harris, all great offensive players, especially those first three. So you can put Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, and Giannis on some of those guys, But you need to have options. You need to be able to, if Giannis gets in foul trouble, or if Giannis needs to take a breather and guard their center if you play him at center, you need another option. And so when they trade for PJ Tucker, I was like, yes, this is exactly what you've got to do if you've got to face the Brooklyn Nets. If you've got to face the Sixers, they've got Tobias Harris, they've got Ben Simmons who can attack you, they've got great scoring wings in like a Seth Curry and a Danny Green, hope he gets healthy soon. You need options. You need options when you face these top tier teams. And a grizzled playoff veteran like PJ Tucker is exactly what this Bucks team needed. This Bucks team needed that grit, that physicality, and that guy who you can run through a wall for. That's what PJ Tucker's been providing. And they need more of him. I'm happy they've been starting him since Dante DiVincenzo went down. I think that was the right decision, putting him in the starting lineup, and it's paying dividends. They also played him a lot at the power forward, guarding Kevin Durant, and played Giannis more at the center. And guess what happened? Giannis had 34, 12, and 3. Why has Giannis not been playing at the center more? Brook Lopez, given, did have a solid game with 6 points and 11 rebounds, but when Giannis plays at the center, it just feels like the game opens up so much because he is your biggest paint threat on this entire team. So it makes sense to play him at the center, and when you play him in that center role, and don't force him to bring the ball up and handle it at the top of the key, things get so much easier for him. He can cut to the basket. He can set screens and do a hard pick and roll. He can do a different offensive sets. He can set off-ball screens, and that can then get him open for lobs. There are so many more offensive options when you don't force Giannis to handle the ball. Giannis can absolutely do that. He's a talent that is capable of handling the ball. But you also have Jrue Holiday and Chris Middleton, who are good ball handlers. And you can even put Bryn Forbes out there, who did a good job in this game of handling the ball, and he had 10 points as well. Bryn Forbes has been great for them off the bench. But you need more minutes like this, where, for example, Jrue Holiday and Chris Middleton had 17 assists combined. That's what they should be doing. They should both be scoring the ball, but they should also be getting Giannis looks. Because Giannis is great, but sometimes he struggles to create his own offense because the Nets' whole defense it's oriented to stopping him. So when you have a defense oriented to stopping one guy, and he's your best scorer, you've got to find ways to get him looks, because you can't just let them completely neutralize Giannis. And the Nets did that on a couple possessions in this game. I think Giannis had like 3. He actually had 4 called offensive fouls. One of them they overturned and made it an and one for him. But he had 3 offensive fouls in this game. That's a lot. Because what they were doing was, when they saw Giannis driving, they knew he wasn't going to kick out when he came in from the top of the key, and so they just stood in front of him and took the charge. You've got to be able to create other offense than forcing him to ISO, and that's what they did in this game. The Bucks looked so much better in this game than they looked for the rest of the series. The Bucks in the last few games, there was some stat that talked about like the Bucks were averaging a historically low amount of assists in this series, or all their buckets had this amount of isolation time or whatever. You can't do that against the Brooklyn Nets. You're not going to beat them isolating. That's their game. They have 3 of the best, when they're healthy, Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving, 3 of the best isolation players basketball has ever seen. Ever. Not just modern, ever seen. And you can't isolate against them or you're just going to lose. You have the personnel with Giannis, Chris Middleton, Jrue Holiday, PJ Tucker, Bryn Forbes, a great 3-point shooter, Pat Connaughton was great tonight. You have so many offensive options. You have to utilize them all, and you're really limiting yourself on the offensive end of the ball when you isolate. And so they stopped doing that, and at the beginning of the game, the looks just weren't falling, but from the immediate, like the first shot of the game was a wide open Jrue Holiday 3. He missed it, but it was one of the best looks I've seen them get like all series on the first possession of the game. That's what they got to do. The looks took a little bit to fall, but once they did start falling, it was an avalanche that the Nets just couldn't stop, and they couldn't keep up with the offense because they don't have Kyrie Irving and James Harden. So, going forward, if the Bucks need to capitalize. They've got to continue using this momentum. Winning 2 games in a row against the Nets is big. Even if they don't have Kyrie Irving and James Harden, you can't let your foot up off the gas. Kevin Durant is an incredible player, and you don't want him to get hot. You need to keep being physical with him defensively. You need to do whatever you have to do to get up in his face. PJ Tucker needs to get in there and play physical. There are a couple of times where, honestly, fouling him wasn't the worst decision, because by showing that physicality, it almost made Kevin Durant more hesitant to get into the paint. I felt like he was settling for shots a little bit at the end of the game because he just didn't want to face that contact. And when you play physical, that's sometimes the way that teams have to beat these high-powered offenses. You've got to play these ugly, gross physical games. There was that last game where the Bucks scored like 98 points and won. Today, 107 really isn't that much. For example, in the Suns-Nuggets game, it was 125 to 118. And the Bucks had 107 in this game. And they won. They beat the Brooklyn Nets with 107 points. That's an impressive feat. So, going forward, the Bucks need to keep being physical. They need to keep playing this like hard-nosed defensive style of basketball. And when they get those stops, run in transition. Because the Nets don't have the defensive personnel to match up, but if you let them get set in their half-court defense, they're able to kind of orient guys to stop Giannis. But if Giannis just runs in transition, which is what happened a lot in this game, good things happen. It felt like every time they got a stop, they were just sprinting out in transition, and Giannis was getting an easy bucket. That's what you've got to do. So shout out to Mike Budenholzer making some good adjustments. Shout out to the Bucks for executing these things well, and that's what they've got to do going forward. Not just against the Nets, but against the Sixers too, or the Hawks, whichever team comes out of that round, if the Bucks are able to beat the Nets. You've got to keep playing physical, you've got to keep running in transition, and you've got to don't pigeonhole Giannis. Let him beat Giannis. Also, Giannis, stop shooting so many threes. I don't know what the hell you're doing. So, with that being said, those are my thoughts on these games. Let me know what you think about the Suns. Going forward, are they going to win the West like I think they're going to? In terms of the Nuggets, what's their outlook for the future? Good, bad, what do you think? Bucks, Nets, do you think Kyrie Irving and James Harden come back for next game? Specifically, do you think James Harden is close to coming back? And now that they're kind of up against a wall, they've got 2 more games of lenience before they're out of this whole thing. Do they bring back the guys early, or do they just try and rest them and see what happens? In terms of the Bucks, what'd you like about their game plan, and do you think they can win this series and beat whoever they face in the Eastern Conference Finals if they do? I appreciate you guys watching this video. I will see you guys later. Everyone say it back.